Welcome to the show. I am that Chris Gore, and you're listening to PodCRASH. And this is a very special episode, special for me because we're talking Batman. This is all about Batman, all things Batman. And I'll be crashing the Comics of Doom podcast, which is all about comics. And we'll talk about Batman comics. We'll talk about Batman Year One, recently released on Blu-ray. We'll also be talking about The Dark Knight Rises, which I know we're all looking forward to. I'm going to introduce a buddy of mine who's here. I always like to have people come here and hang out at PodCRASH HQ. I want to introduce Ryan Collins. Ryan, hello, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's the sound of one hand clapping right there. It was actually one hand was doing the clapping, the other hand was doing the receiving of the clap.
Should I have clapped too for myself?
Yes, you should have.
All right.
All right, again, Ryan Collins, welcome to the show. Yeah. All right. Much better introduction. Now, Ryan, I met you at a party. It was Jeremy Hoffman. It was like Jeremy Hoffman's Ugly Holiday Sweater Party, which if you look up, if you Google Chris Gore Holiday Sweater, Ugly Holiday Sweater, I first of all will apologize in advance. But Ryan, we met there and we just sort of bonded over the TV show Mad Men and your Facebook group, Simpler Times. Tell me about Simpler Times.
Simpler Times is based on a terrible, terrible Trader Joe's beer that you can get for like 50 cents a can, and how it kind of inspires its own drinking game where you just kind of sit around admiring simpler times in which people said really awful things.
Like they do weekly on the TV show Mad Men, which is a favorite of mine, which will be returning to AMC soon. I love the show Mad Men. To me is not so. It's more about the comeuppance of women in the workplace. To me, that's really what the show is about. Yes, Don Draper and all his drama, but I really feel like the women in the show are this anchor. I mean, it's also what makes it more interesting, and they're the source of all the drama, kind of like real life.
Indeed. Simpler Times has none of those wonderful pitfalls of drama, unfortunately.
Now, a lot of people, though, a lot of people might be wondering, like, because you can listen to a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of podcasts out there, and I appreciate each and every one of you listening to PodCRASH every week. I have to say thank you. I want to say thank you for all of your comments on iTunes. Please continue to, if you listen to the show, you have not commented on iTunes or rated us, please give us the highest rating if you feel so inclined, and also make a nice comment. But a lot of podcasts like to have on celebrities, and I think that's great. I personally, I think that there are a million podcasts out there that have celebrities on. I like to just have the fun friends from my life here because I feel like you have a lot more to say. I mean, you can have a celebrity on, oh, that's so interesting. But, they say in life you should treat a celebrity like a normal person. You should treat a normal person like a celebrity. So you know what, Ryan? I'm treating you like a celebrity.
Thank you, Chris.
Also, I can't believe I just called you normal. This is kind of insulting what I just did.
It's a little weird.
It's actually a little weird to say this, but I tend to attract and collect a bizarre group of friends. If you ever come to a party of mine, which you're going to be going to a party of mine shortly. When I have parties, it's the most ragtag collection of misfits where I know someone from the indie film world, then I know someone from San Diego Comic-Con, then I know someone from the podcast world, but then I have a friend from G4 TV. Like, my group of friends run the gamut, and you are one of them.
Well, thank you. It's definitely interesting circumstances.
But whenever I see you and we're just like, wherever it is, wherever we run into each other, there's always sort of this kinship of nerddom. And we both seem to have this bizarre sense of humor where we can get away with saying the stupidest crap.
Yeah, and sometimes offensive, but that's not for him.
Now, I used to work at a comic book store, which I thought, used to work at a comic book store. You are the perfect person to have on this podcast, which is really about comics and Batman, sort of obsession with Batman, which I don't know if I should apologize or whatever, but now you're at PodCRASH HQ, or sometimes I call it Gore Walker Ranch. You're seeing the product of my Batman obsession everywhere, including you went to the Batroom. You actually went to the Batroom.
I did.
And used the toilet in the Batroom.
There's a bathroom, and he talks about it a bit on the podcast of the things he's created for Batman. But it's not really like, you don't really know until you actually come here and see for yourself of how insane, how everything in this house is Batman.
I'm a little obsessed, and I apologize. Go ahead. Feel free to embarrass me with some of because now I've given you like a mini tour. What do you, if you came in here and you didn't know that I was a serial killer? Let's say you just thought I was a normal person. You might think I was a serial killer.
Well, my favorite one is kind of understated. Was that in the bat room, which is the bathroom, obviously, is the face wash has a picture of Bruce Wayne with half of his costume and so no shirt, boxing gloves on, and he's just punching the air, and somehow that represents Chris's face wash. And
no, it's not the face wash. That's actually my mouthwash.
Right.
That's my mouthwash because it beats
Sorry.
germs that cause bad breath. So that's what I literally thought it beats germs that cause bad breath. That's why you see a shirtless Batman punching a punching bag.
He's quite young and dapper in it as well.
I'll have to tweet a picture of it because it is the dumbest thing that's in my bathroom.
It's really amazing, and it's punching you in the face, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I am obsessed with Batman, which when I had the opportunity to go on the Comics of Doom podcast, I leapt. I leapt at the opportunity. I was so excited. I really wanted to do that. I leapt in the same way that you might leap to listen to Stitcher. That's right. You can hear PodCRASH with that Chris Gore on Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher allows you to listen to your favorite shows directly from your iPhone, Android phone, BlackBerry, or Palm phones. On demand and on the go. Don't have Stitcher? Download it for free today at Stitcher.com or in your friendly app store. Stitcher Smart Radio. It's the smarter way to listen to radio. I just wanted to sort of work that in naturally. That was terrible. My producer Sean Merrick, who's in the room, is giving me a look. He's giving me a look, which means I must have done something wrong.
It was half there.
It was half there. Okay, it was like half a joke.
It'll work.
Anyway, so I appeared on this podcast, Comics of Doom, because I will jump at the opportunity to talk about Batman. And I have seen The Dark Knight Rises prologue. Let's just say I'm not gonna, because I don't know when when you're going to be listening to this. But because this is only playing in so few theaters in the United States, there's a good chance you have not seen The Dark Knight Rises prologue. So this is going to be a spoiler-free zone for The Dark Knight Rises prologue. It's the first 7 minutes of The Dark Knight Rises, little 30 seconds or a minute at the end where you see some little montage of clips, and effectively you're introduced to the character of Bane. I'm only going to speak to one point, and that is the fact, and this is a thing that has been written about on every podcast, it's been talked about on podcasts, it's been written about on every blog, and everyone who saw the prologue is the fact that you cannot understand what Bane says. He does not have a British accent, as has been reported by some. It's sort of how you would imagine Bane, with sort of a thick... What's his accent? What's his accent in the comics?
He's South American, I think.
Is he South... Okay.
He's like I think a made-up South American. I kind of don't remember, but I'm pretty sure he's from South America.
Okay, and in Arkham City, you can understand what he's saying, but does it the thick accent of the Bane? He is Bane.
Yeah.
He's kind of like, he's like a guy he's like a luchador. He looks like a luchador.
Yeah, which is what leads me to believe South American, because they
right.
Yeah.
Right. And in the in the comics, I was never a fan of Bane. Maybe it was because it just like I'm not a huge fan of wrestling. I like the soap opera of wrestling, not the actual fighting. But Bane, I just thought so they decided to capitalize on kids' obsession with wrestling. So they created a villain that was a wrestler. Ryan, explain this to me.
I mean, he's not just the wrestler. Like, he's not Hulk Hogan. Like, he's pretty intelligent. Like, he's the guy who figured out how to break the bat and chased and cornered him and everything.
Well, right. There was that whole, like, how long, I don't know, that was like almost a year where Batman broke his back. Which a lot of people theorize will happen in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, I've heard that theories that it's like the end of the trilogy because he loses.
Well, that's what's
something to that degree.
That's what's interesting. If you look at the first 2 Batman films, Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, the Joker may have foiled Batman. The Joker may have tricked Batman by leading him astray, but the Joker never once defeated Batman. And if you think about it, you watch Batman Begins, Batman was not defeated in Batman Begins either. What I think is interesting in this is you'll see Batman defeated. I mean, that teaser poster with the broken Batman mask, which you'll get more footage of from in the prologue, is it's really provocative.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be interesting to kind of end it on an Empire Strikes Back kind of ending of like, oh, the end of the trilogy, he just completely fails, and I don't know. I don't know that he'll completely fail. I think there might be maybe a price to pay for whatever ending comes of this.
Well, famously, I mean, like what you've heard, and you've heard this around the blogs, where Christopher Nolan has a copy of the script. He doesn't tell you. He basically, you read the script and the last few pages of the script are missing. He tells you what the ending is verbally. There's not a physical printed out copy of the last few pages of the script because he doesn't want it to get leaked. I respect that. I love that about Nolan. He's one of the filmmakers who actually will preserve a sense of surprise. So few films now we go to and actually are surprised at what we see, and I respect that. But the thing that was talked about in, this is a very ADD podcast, which is it's like hanging out with me, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about comics. They're naturally...
We're bouncing around.
Yeah, they're naturally an ADD kind of conversation.
All over the place. But the thing that everyone complained about with the prologue, and you'll be hearing a lot of people talk about that, is Bane's voice. He not only has a mask on, and Bane talks like this, he had the thick accent, and he said the fire rises, and this is Bane. First of all, I can't imagine Bane in the movie trying to give orders to his minions. Make sure you kill the Batman.
Yeah, I mean...
What?
Bane,
could you repeat that? Make sure you destroy the Batman. And can you imagine, okay, not only that, what if Bane has to be on a cell phone? It's one thing that he's got this voice that face to face you can barely understand, but can you imagine Bane on a cell phone where he's talking? It'd be just like the worst. It'd be like Bane talking like, "Just we're going to give you these are the instructions to destroy the Batman. You need to break the bat." The one thing is, because you don't see, just to dispel any rumors, you don't see the origin of Bane in this. You don't see how Bane becomes Bane. And I like that. We never saw the origin of the Joker. He was just a force of nature as described by Chris Nolan. It would be funny to see the source of pain for Bane is that he used to work in the fast food industry at the drive-thru as a cashier, and no one could understand him. That's 2 Jumbo Jacks with cheese, a shake, and you're going to have the curly fries. That'll be $8.59, please go around. I can't understand you! Who is this? $8.59, got 2 cheeseburgers, a chocolate shake, and curly fries. $8.59, go around! I can't understand. I really think that that's where his anger could come from. Bane's anger came from the fact that no one could understand what the fuck he was saying.
So he worked fast food retail, and he broke some people in half.
He broke some people in half,
Yeah.
but it's possible. But I think that a lot of people have tried to urge Christopher Nolan to alter this in not only in the prologue but also in the film. But my understanding is, and this is from an inside source, this is not spoiler related, that Christopher Nolan wants you to listen carefully to what Bane says, and I respect that. I think he's got an artistic vision. I think that he's always got also a political and social message wrapped within a iconic comic book hero. So I'm looking forward to it. What are your thoughts on that? Because you've read a lot of stuff on the internet.
I mean, my first thought is that conversations between the two of them will be really, really hard to understand. Like, you have one guy shouting and one guy with a mask trying to speak with an accent.
Yeah, like you've got
Rachel.
Yeah,
and then
you've got Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Talking in the Christian Bale voice. And everything Bale talking with the thick accent and with the mask on. That's kind of a Darth Vader mask. Except I need to put the gas. I need to put the gas so I can do my wrestling and my working out later.
You kind of turned into like a demented Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, I think he's like that, but I like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like in Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
which I love the original. I mean, that new Conan came out. I saw it. Wow, it was
Yeah.
terrible. It was like a bad TV episode. But it basically makes you appreciate the old Conan. I mean, you could understand him just enough, and I think that worked for Conan. With Bane, I don't know. Like Tom Hardy, I have faith in him. You saw Warrior, right?
He's fantastic.
Oh, Warrior's amazing.
He's supposed to be really eloquent, like as Bane. I think is what Nolan is going for because he's such a commanding force.
Right.
But if you can't understand what he's saying, is it really? I don't know. Like, is it going to become another joke like the Batman voices? I think that's what the real concern is.
So let's get right to this this week's crash. A Batman themed Comics of Doom. Comics of Doom. Can you understand what I'm saying? Comics of Doom. Take a listen, folks.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey!
Jingle bells, Batman smelt, Robin laid an egg. The Batmobile lost the wheel, cause the Joker got away.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Comics of Doom, the official comics podcast of geeksofdoom.com. My name is Justin Vactor. I'm here with Mr. Hunter Camp.
Ta-da.
And Mr. Willie Gillis.
He's a magician.
And today's episode is a special. We like to review these DC animated movies whenever they come out. So the latest release is the Batman Year One.
Well, Justin, we can't really say that we do it when they come out.
Wait a minute.
Because it
We're a little
is
late.
Yeah, it's a little bit behind the clock on that one.
No, it doesn't matter when we do the review. It just matters that we do it. Even though Batman Year One came out about 2 months ago, we are just now getting around to it. So be happy, Hunter Camp. And
I am.
we have a very special guest with us today, Mr. Attack of the Show, G4, DV Doomsday, Mr. Film Threat, Mr. That Chris Gore. How you doing, Chris?
Oh, thanks. Wow. Nerds assemble. Let's go. Come on. I'm ready to talk comics.
For everybody out there, if you're listening to this show, listen also to PodCRASH and listen until the very end. Because that's what I do. Whenever I see a podcast, I always look at the time limit on it, and I see that if there's 5 minutes left, even though someone said goodbye, I'm like, oh, there's got to be something else at the end here. So I saw that with PodCRASH. So like I said, I think that is brilliant, and I think the concept of the show is brilliant.
Oh, thanks.
So
Did you recognize all of the explosions at the end of every episode? There's an explosion from the end of a movie at the end of every episode.
Oh.
And you can guess what most of them are.
I unfortunately my explosion knowledge is not that great. So yeah, I thought they were all the same, and my ears are terrible. So yeah.
Oh, it's funny because it's like when someone asks me, what's your favorite science fiction movie? I say, that one where there's a big explosion at the end of the movie. I love that one. So I've recorded and archived hundreds of explosions that appear at the end of movies. And every episode you can hear one at the very end of the episode when we end it, and then you can figure out what it is. You should figure it out because usually it's referenced within the show.
Oh. And specifically, now, Chris, I know you're a huge Batman fan, so that's kind of the genesis of trying to get you on this episode in particular.
Who talking among us? We're all Batman fans, aren't we?
I'm the biggest.
Yeah, actually, Hunter Camp and I, we used to do a Batman-specific podcast where it was all Batman all the time. So that's we have a great love for the character. And I know Willie enjoys Batman as well. Yeah, so it's one of those things that Batman is a transcendent hero, and he through the movies, through the animation, through the television shows, Batman's one that has lasted and endured throughout. And yeah, everyone loves Batman. But yeah, Chris, in particular, how did you find Batman, or what was your start with Batman?
I think like a lot of people that are older geeks in the crowd, I watched the TV show when I was a kid. I mean, it was in reruns, but it was really discovering that Batman TV show, and like a lot of people, taking a towel and wrapping around my neck and pretending to play Batman. Of course, you'd have to find a sucker friend to play Robin, which sucked for them. But it was such a simple, weird show. I mean, it was always, oh, look, we're tied up on a conveyor belt and we're about to be taken away. What's going on? Oh no.
The death traps were awesome though.
Death traps.
I grew up in the same thing, so I'm totally with you there.
Yeah,
but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it started with the TV show. Then I discovered the comics. But to me, and the thing is, I like the original Tim Burton movie, but I feel like Tim Burton is more of an art director than a film director. The way he forms a cinematic sentence, it's like walking through Jello. His movies have a pace that are kind of slow. So I was a little disappointed with the movie. But the thing that sort of really got me back into Batman was right around high school when The Dark Knight came out. Dark Knight Returns. I mean, that comic book by Frank Miller, that was the one. That was it. That followed by Killing Joke by Alan Moore, followed by and then just rediscovering Batman through year 1, year 2, and just rebuying Batman comics and seeing a vision of the character that we hadn't seen. I don't think there wouldn't have been the Tim Burton Batman movie without the Frank Miller's Dark Knight.
Okay, Ryan, you got to tell me. I actually did tie towels around my neck, and I played superhero when I was like 5. Did you do the same thing?
I was the kid who put pencils between his fingers for Wolverine. Like, that was me. Like, growing up with X-Men, that was me.
I never thought about that. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty
not
good.
Not so much capes, but yeah, I had claws, and I probably had a cape a couple times because I was really fond of the animated series.
Okay, now working at a comic book store, you probably have heard all of the dumb questions, but settle an argument. What is the correct pronunciation of Ra's al Ghul? Or it's pronounced Ra's al Ghul in the movies, in the Christopher Nolan Batman. The Christopher Nolan, they're calling it the Nolanverse, right?
Right.
Is it the Nolanverse?
I've heard that before.
I've heard that before, but Ra's al Ghul, what's the correct pronunciation?
From Denny O'Neil, the creator of him, from Denny O'Neil's wife, she said that they had their daughter talk to the UCLA language department, and that would be Ra's al Ghul.
It's Ra's al Ghul.
So they say Ra's al Ghul. And this is from like an old comic forum from way back in the day when creators would be everywhere talking to you. So I say Raish. I mean, the movie...
You say Raish, I say Rosh.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. It's a moment of contention. It's something that like the comic community can never agree on, and that's kind of funny to me.
Well, it's to me one of the least interesting arguments is correct pronunciation. All right, let's get back to the podcast.
And to me, you can't have The Dark Knight Returns without Frank Miller's art. It just doesn't work, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Let's settle an argument right now. Is it Mazzucchelli or Mazzucchelli?
I've always said Mazzucchelli. I have no idea.
Yeah, and I've heard both. So I
think it's on the extras on the Batman Year 1 DVD. I think it's Mazzucchelli, but
I'm going to go, since Hunter said Mazzucchelli, I'm going to say Mazzucchelli.
Yeah, that's par for the course.
And Willie, what do you say?
I'm going to say Mazzucchelli.
All right, you're wrong, Willie.
Now, see, these are like only around a bunch of dudes like us would we get in an argument about something like this. Well, the correct pronunciation of his name. Jim Gordon was a character introduced in the TV show. He never appeared in the comics until after the 1960s Batman series. Blah, blah, blah.
When you got a hold of this DVD/Blu-ray of Batman Year 1, what were your first thoughts? What was running through your mind when you had it in your hand?
Well, the thing for me is it's really about the voice acting, because they did. I'd almost rather see. This is going to sound really cheesy, but I'd almost rather see them take the comic book and animate the artwork in the way that they did those Marvel superhero shows from the 1960s, where there was barely any animation, just limited animation, because it preserved like the Jack Kirby, or for the most part, Jack Kirby artwork. And the voice acting in those old 60s Marvel shows were great. And I feel they put too much emphasis on the visuals and the animation, and especially when they integrate things like computer animation. You've got digital models of vehicles and cities, and it's overkill. To me, it's really all about that voice acting. And I think they did a great job with Bryan Cranston as Jim Gordon.
Absolutely.
The guy who played Batman, oh God, his name escapes me. Someone will correct me, or someone will.
Is it Ben something?
Benjamin McKenzie.
Yeah, Ben McKenzie.
He was okay, but I really think that you can't discount the voice acting is so critical. I mean, you really had to feel and feel a change in that character, in Bruce Wayne's character. And I remember when I first started doing TV work, someone gave me some advice on doing voice acting. They said, smile when you talk because you can hear the smile. And I think that's true, and it's really shows you how important the voice acting is, and I think on that they hit the mark. What I really would have liked to have seen is more preservation of that Mazzucchelli art. I gotta pick a side.
Yeah.
But when you brought up Ben McKenzie as Batman Bruce Wayne, that was really the only weak spot that I thought that was in the voice acting in general with the whole movie, because he sounded more like a Rorschach. Like the first thing that he said sounded almost exactly like how I would picture Rorschach to sound from Watchmen. You know, and that was just
great.
It was just
it's Watchmen.
Yeah. But I mean, it was a little not Batman enough, you know, and it wasn't Bruce Wayne at all, you know, like how Kevin Conroy approaches the character as far as, you know, the iconic portrayal of Batman, you know, he does the very different Batman versus Bruce Wayne voice, and it didn't seem like like McKenzie was able to pull that off, but like everybody else was absolutely fabulous.
Well, you know what? I completely agree with you. You hit the nail on the head, and I think the reason I didn't enjoy it as much is because I was waiting for Kevin Conroy. I really wanted to hear his voice, and his voice was in my head the whole time. Like everything animated Batman to me has been him. Does anyone know why he didn't do it?
It was because the character's younger in this one. And it was like I guess not an editorial decision, but like a studio decision to bring somebody in that was younger.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't agree necessarily with that decision. I think he could have played younger in his voice. He could have smiled a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kevin Conroy is Batman to me. I think even out of the live action interpretations, Kevin Conroy is my favorite Batman, just period. So
we could start a crowdfunding campaign. We should hire Kevin Conroy to redub all of Christian Bale's dialogue in the Batman movies and release it as a fan film on the internet.
That would be the greatest.
We should do that. The thing I find, you're playing Arkham City, and I'm playing through it as well. I guess there's only one thing that bugs me about that game. I find it completely unrealistic that Batman would stop and pick up Riddler question marks. And where does he keep them? Where does he keep these Riddler question marks? I just found another Riddler question mark. I guess I'll add this to my pile. Where does he carry them? And what does he get? I mean, that's the one thing. Everything is so realistic about the game, even the way that Batman fights, the fighting style. I mean, the music is epic. I'm going to buy that the grappling hook works on everything. You know, but the Riddler question marks is the one thing that is just so Mario, you know, picking up the mushrooms or Sonic it just doesn't, it's with the rings. It makes no sense. It's stupid.
That is funny. I never even thought about that. Catwoman's the same way. Like she picks up little Riddler question marks in her missions, and it doesn't really make any sense either. This is a little bit of a sidetrack, but yeah, Arkham City, I've beaten the game and I'm still going back for more. It's one of those games that you can still play it even after you complete the story mode. You're only like 50% through the game. It is the picking up the question marks is a part of that percentage.
Yeah, I was going to say yes. I've got to go back because I've got to get those question marks. I've got to collect them all.
And
I
don't know, Chris, do you do downloadable content at all for games?
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2, I got all the DLC for that stuff. That's the one thing that bugs me about this is how many different versions of Arkham City you could get. You know, if you pre-bought it at Best Buy, there was this, you know, you could get Robin, but if you pre-bought it at GameStop, well, you'd get the Carnival Joker level maps. I mean, it was so confusing after a while. I just said, I don't care. I just want to play the game. I'll pay for the DLC rather than have to deal with all of this, you know, nonsense. But I think to me, the weakest part of the game, I haven't really played as him that much, is Robin. I mean, it's just like, well, we have to shoehorn him in. And I mean, it's funny that he hasn't appeared in the Chris Nolan movies, although who knows with Dark Knight Rises, but I doubt that there'll be a Robin in it. But because there were rumors about Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but I don't think that's true.
It could be Nightwing.
Yeah, but I think Nightwing, let's be honest. Nightwing is a character, and I mean this in the comic book sense, is gay. He's just a gay-looking character. It's the dumbest, and the reason it's is because that costume changes constantly. It's like there is no classic. Oh well, that's the classic Nightwing costume. There is no classic Nightwing costume because it's not
Wing.
It's basically Robin saying, "I kind of still want to hang out with you, Batman." It's like, no, I'm dating other Robins.
Okay, let's talk about Nightwing's costume. I think it's one of the lamest costumes in comicdom is Nightwing's costume. First of all, even a lame name, Nightwing.
I guess we're kind of pulling hairs as far as, is Batman a cool name, or is it just cool because he's been around for so long? But as far as Nightwing, it's like, they mentioned on the podcast, they mentioned the disco outfit that he used to have, which is the classic Nightwing, which is just the worst. Like, he had, like, gold plates on his chest, and nowadays he has, like, the same kind of shitty blue costume, but red, which is cool.
Well, he had like a big collar on it too. There's like a very large collar on that costume.
Yeah, now he's just like spandex with a big red like Nightwing logo as opposed to the blue one, which is edgy and New 52, I guess.
I just think that any sort of costume change in any character, because it causes so much debate among fans, i.e. Superman's red underpants. They're blue now. They used to be red. I'm more of a red Superman underpants guy. Any costume change to me is just a crass attempt to make me buy a comic book again.
Yeah. As far as the classic Nightwing, I'm with Hunter. The disco collar, the 70s Nightwing, that is the one. That's a classic Nightwing for me.
It's like if you took the disco wing collar and then like added finger stripes to it, then like everybody would be happy.
But
it's one of those things where I could definitely see it in a pride parade, but I would not actually see Nightwing actually out fighting crime. Whereas, Chris Nolan, they've made the Batman costume practical. He gave him reasons for certain things to exist, whether it's the utility belt, the way that the armor works. I mean, how do you fit Robin into that? I'm going to give you a very practical utilitarian suit that will protect you. I'm just going to make yours more colorful and with an R.
Well, I mean,
it doesn't make any sense. And I think Chris Nolan's approach to the universe, making a realistic approach to Batman, is sort of an almost indie film approach, focusing it on character, makes you really believe that it could exist, and Robin doesn't fit in that. And then the Assassin's Creed hood is so lame. I feel like they totally ripped that off from Assassin's Creed, from someone mentioned Moon Knight. I mean, it's like, it looks like a monk that's
where I think that came from, the character design for Damian Wayne in Grant Morrison's run, and so that's where that hood came from. And in the comics, it looks really cool. But in the game, I would agree with you there.
But that's true with a lot of stuff in comics. Is it looks so cool on the page? You're looking at it, you're like, oh man, look at the way that Mr. Fantastic stretches, and the rock skin of the thing, and look at the way and those poses. But then when you actually see that in physical reality, it doesn't necessarily translate. I know that when Sam Raimi was doing Spider-Man, he specifically tried to find classic Spider-Man poses that Spider-Man could get into, but they're on screen for a fraction of a second holding in that pose, but they're familiar poses from the comic book. So, I mean, things like, like Wolverine in the yellow and blue costume would never have worked in real life. It just looks really strange. Although I do like how in X-Men First Class that they kind of did something of a nod to those original costumes. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm super excited about this new Superman movie. Oddly enough, I think a good way to describe it, because I got to interview Henry Cavill for the Immortals junket. Oh. And I asked him about it. I said, I'm not going to say the S word, but can you tell me about some other projects you might be working on? And he said that, couldn't tell me anything, but he said that Superman is the best script he's ever read. Oh. And knowing that Nolan is involved as an exec producer sounds great. Now, I like the way that the reason they picked Henry Cavill, because the problem with Christopher Reeve, and I think the problem also with Brandon Routh, is they're pretty boys. They're really good-looking model types. Henry Cavill's like a man. He's like a grizzled man in the sense that like Charlton Heston was a man and Kirk Douglas is a man. It's Superman, not super good-looking model guy who can punch things. No, it's Superman. And so I really hope that they go with they're obviously going with a different way. I just want to make sure that Zack Snyder is reined in and it doesn't feel so digitally. Yes. There's not slow motion every other shot, so it's not, stylistically, probably I'm hoping it's more like a Chris Nolan movie, and Zack Snyder's on a short leash. That's what I'm hoping, and that the script will shine through. And Cavill's amazing. If you've seen Immortals, you're getting a taste of what the new Superman, which we'll see in 2013,
Yeah,
what
Chris,
that
did that worry you at all that it got pushed back to 2013?
Oh no, not at all. I think that's a good thing in the long run. Although I heard the weirdest rumor ever about Superman before they started shooting is that one of the things they were trying to do was do Superman all digital. So Superman would be 100% completely digital.
I heard that about Zod.
Did you? No. Well, this is what I heard. So Superman would be completely digital, and then what they would do is they would just cast sort of different people to play Clark Kent, and then Superman.
So
then
terrible.
That's so corporate, like studio. Like we're gonna make a digital Superman, which we'll just own, like Woody and Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah.
They'll just create a digital character, and it doesn't age. You can get different people to do the voice, do sound alikes.
Yeah.
You know,
And, we'll save money because you're not playing Superman and Clark Kent. You're just playing Clark Kent, so we're not going to pay you half.
Well, it's weird. I think Nolan's got the right idea. I mean, it's like 3 Batman movies. They're spread over time. You know, I mean, that's the way it works. I mean, look, people age during these things. I mean, humans. I mean, I guess you could digitally completely capture a human, and someday we could see new movies with Christopher Reeve in them that are actually good. Not the first 2 are decent, and then after that, the Superman's way downhill quickly.
Yeah,
2's pretty bad.
Well, you're right. Although, did you see the recut that Richard Donner did?
Yes, and I watched that recently, and that was pretty bad.
No.
It was better.
No,
It was better.
No.
But I don't care what anybody says. That movie is not good.
No.
Well, it's the thing is, it has one good aspect to it, which is General Zod. I mean, Terrence Stamp is amazing in it. So you've got a good villain.
Yes,
I mean,
I agree there.
that's what you can't have a great. That's why Batman, I think, is the best of all the comic book heroes. He's not just got one good villain. He's got like 20 good villains. I mean, you could easily come up with a top 10 Batman villains list. I mean, that was what made the 60s TV show, is constantly inventing these amazing villains. And other superheroes, they just don't have the good. Green Lantern, his biggest foil is Parallax, a thing that looks like it's the off the back of an Affliction shirt. You know, it's this giant skull with tentacles that looks like you could buy it at the mall, you know, off of a shirt. It's ridiculous. It's a lame villain.
Now, Ryan, what do you think about that? I think the last time I read a Green Lantern comic, I read a Green Lantern core comic written by Alan Moore way back in the day. But what do you think about this whole thing about how Green Lanterns, in the Green Lantern movie, that, you know, Ryan Reynolds' character has to go all the way to Oa. They don't have Skype. They can't use they don't have like, you know, what's the cellular service for the Galactic Council on Oa?
I mean, I think from an honest point of view, they just wanted to show off the fact that, hey, we made Oa. Look how cool it looks. Like, let's have Ryan Reynolds be there all the time. And as opposed to just talking to his ring, because that's boring.
But it's really a dumb, like, even in the Star Wars universe, it's like they use holograms. Like, well, I'm effectively there. I'm in your palm, or I'm on the table. And they use, like, these sort of holographic versions of people that sort of, it's basically like Skype with holograms, which I'm sure will be invented by Apple at some point. But it just seemed so dumb to basically have him go all through the entire galaxy. We're hoping he's surrounded by some protective shield to get to Oa, and then he has to go back. What would be really hilarious would be if they showed additional scenes with the Green Lantern where he's going back to Earth after having a meeting at Oa. What if you have to take a leak too? Are you in the protective shield? Does it stay in, like, explain this to me.
Well, I was just thinking, like, maybe he gets...
Where's Jeff Johns?
Like,
he would know the answers to these questions.
Maybe, you get hungry? Like, where do you stop? Like, where's the Space Burger King? Like, where's he stopping off on the way back?
And
like,
is it minutes in space? Is it hours? I mean, that distance is very far.
Well, in the film, it's like seconds, right? Like, he just kind of...
Yes.
Time-lapse and he's there. Like,
one would think it would take longer, but I just think it just makes that always bothered me about that movie.
Well, yeah. I mean, and if he can travel that fast to get there so incredibly quickly that he doesn't die, why doesn't he do that in the film when he's fighting Parallax?
That's true. Parallax. All right, look, let's talk about, you know what? Maybe you don't know about this, that there was a previous Green Lantern movie before the one that was developed with Ryan Reynolds.
Is this the Jack Black one?
Yes, it was.
I've heard.
Do you know?
I've
so you
heard,
know.
I've
Okay.
heard about it.
Okay, well, spoiler, I'm going to tell you about this, Jack. They had written a script, and it was more of a comedy script about the Green Lantern character. And if I think it was Robert Smigel who actually wrote the script for this, if I remember correctly. And it was written for Jack Black to play the Green Lantern. And Robert Smigel thought that Green Lantern was the dumbest character, because it's basically a guy who just gets a ring.
Yeah.
It basically,
Well, yeah.
he just gets the ring, and because you're a hero, you've got the power.
Yeah.
So what happens in the movie, which I think is brilliant because it'll never be made, I'll tell you. What happens in the script is that Jack Black as the Green Lantern, his challenge at the end of the film is giant asteroids are coming to destroy the Earth.
Okay.
And so Jack Black's whole thing is that basically everyone on Earth is saying, go destroy the asteroids. And he's like, no. I'll just move the Earth out of the way of the asteroids. And all the people on Earth are saying, the scientists are saying, no, don't move the Earth. There'll be cataclysms. So what happens is Jack Black uses the power of his ring to move the Earth out of the way of the asteroids. This giant asteroid like moves past the Earth. Earth doesn't get destroyed. But what happens is that basically Jack Black destroys the Earth by moving it out of the way, which makes no sense.
Are you serious?
That's okay. No, here's what happens. What happens then is that Jack Black, he's like so distraught over the fact that he basically destroyed the Earth that he remembers what happened at the end of Superman 1. He takes his ring and he makes Superman from the first Superman movie, and that green Superman goes around the Earth, spins around, turns back time to where the Earth is okay, and the movie ends with basically Jack Black in the Green Lantern costume sitting with like some Mai Tai on the side of a pool.
It didn't make any sense.
You know what the dumbest part about that movie was, and this is saying a lot coming from that
It's
movie,
all-
but the fact that when he gets
Only list your top 15 dumb things.
when he gets kicked out of the Green Lantern Corps, they let him
keeps the ring.
Yeah, he keeps
Like,
the
what is
ring,
that?
the most powerful weapon that they have. Oh, you can keep that. You know, you quit.
You'll be back.
You quit, but you can keep that ring.
On
Go
Earth,
back to Earth.
the primitive culture of Earth, they take your badge and gun away when they strip you of your powers. I mean, there's so many things that didn't make sense. It really should have focused on him as a character. They threw in some lame, my dad died. Okay, yeah, we've seen that in so many other movies.
Which that is a part of his origin, but it's still
true. But I mean, they could have updated and changed it, because it's not like, I feel like there are classic heroes that you just sort of know what the beats are, but with the lesser known superheroes, the kind of, let's face it. I mean, Green Lantern is a B superhero in the DC universe. You can play a little bit with their origins. I mean, look at the way that Nolan played with Batman's origin. I mean, I love that he did. He made everything better. He sort of mined the best aspects of 50 years of comic book 50 plus years of comic book writing history and created this story. I mean, he borrowed from Frank Miller. He borrowed from Killing Joke. He borrowed from so many different things to create, the Nolan verse, that it's, to me, the best incarnation of a superhero ever in cinematic history, bar none. I want to smash something now.
Yeah,
but they could have Lantern, not like they could have introduced the core at the end of the film, but not right at the beginning. There's too many things to digest.
And when do you think they're going to learn from Spider-Man 3, from Green Lantern, that too much is too much? Like, you can't shove in 3 different storylines and have them all play out in the same 2-hour span or 90-minute span or whatever it's going to be. When are they going to learn?
First of all, that's a great point, because maybe the problem is that the form of storytelling. I mean, comic books is great. It's ongoing.
Yeah.
It's one story. And until they reboot it or get a new writing/illustrating team, it generally is one chronology, which is great, like a soap opera or a movie serial or a television. But I really think that television, to me, is really where the best storytelling is happening. It's not at the movies. It really is, shows like Lost and Walking Dead. And, there should be some effort or thought put into, like, you can make the movie, but you can also continue to tell this story in a different way. I think there's a lot of pressure put on that it's a movie, so that just by adding Superman, the first Superman movie is called Superman the Movie. That's what it's called. That's the name of the film. There's a level of importance, like, well, if it's the movie, it's got to be big. So whatever it is, it's got to be a planet attacking, So that was a
planet attackings are awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, planet attack. But then in Star Trek, the motion picture, they had to one up Star Wars and say, well, we're not. It's not just a planet. It's 82 AUs in diameter. Which anyone who read the Star Trek novelization, which I did when I was a kid, that's 82 solar systems long. That's how big V'ger was. So this is how Star Trek is trying to top Star Wars. It's like, well, they have the Death Star. It's the size of a small moon. It's like, no, we've got 82 size solar system galaxies coming to destroy the Earth. Top that fucking Star Wars. I mean, that's the problem with doing, and that in Star Trek, you know what Star Trek was called? Star Trek, the motion picture. So when you add the movie to anything, there's sort of a bigness to it where it's like, it's got to be the biggest and the biggest thing ever. And it really doesn't. It can just be an ongoing story that's rooted in some kind of realism. And I think that's where TV succeeds and does better than the movies, because the movies, and also the deal making that happens with movies is sort of a hassle. You know, it takes 3 years just to get through the legal hullabaloo and the marketing and all the bullshit. It's like, you know, start an ongoing series. They should do something. Someone suggested, this was someone I was talking to at Attack of the Show. Someone suggested they just do something about just the cops in Gotham. Just the cops.
There's the comic book series Gotham Central.
Okay, so that's it. Yeah. Okay, so they were telling me about Gotham Central, which I have not read.
Oh, you have to read it.
That's what I hear about, which would be great. It'd be like a cop procedural.
The TV show. I've been saying that for
that'd be a great TV show.
5 years almost. Yeah, it would be.
But would it be a cock tease in the sense that, like, I always hated Smallville? I know people are going to hate me for saying that, but I always hated Smallville. It's like, okay, here's what happens. We're going to do a whole series about Superman. Except he kind of rarely uses his powers for budget reasons and never gets the costume. And we're going to do it for 6 years.
10 years.
10 years. He's going to be in high school for 10 years. I tweeted something recently that, you know, I hope they never make Gothamville, The Adventures of Batboy.
They almost did. Well, that's what Smallville was originally supposed to be. It was supposed to be Batman. Yeah. It was absolutely supposed to be Batman.
But I just feel like that's just because we know what's going to happen at the end.
It is. But the thing is, like with Gotham Central, it would be fine because it's like you could have Batman show up every once in a while. And you could have other heroes show up every once in a while and then just use villains. And so that's why it wouldn't that wouldn't be that big of a deal. You know, it's like you don't have to have
like the Shield with Batman.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like,
have you guys seen? Okay, we were talking about Nightwing earlier. First of all, I wish we were doing this over drinks, like at Comic-Con or something like that, because this could go on for hours. But
yes,
I'm sure you guys have seen that trailer, that fan-made fake trailer for the movie Grayson.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh my God! See, that to me, if they did something like that, that's what I love about what Nolan's done. Is he's killed characters, he takes risks, you know, like you would in a movie. You know, something big happens to them, there has to be change. If you did Grayson just as a standalone movie, I really think that's almost the only way you could do Robin, is you accept that the reality's there. The movie opens at Batman's funeral, and it's Dick Grayson thinking about putting the suit back on and reuniting, you know, with all these other characters. I interviewed the guy who did it, and it's amazing, like how much money he spent. It was like 2 years, and he shot it in 16 millimeter. But anyone, if you're listening to this on a device, look up Grayson, the trailer. It's like 5 minutes, and it'll make you want to see a movie about Robin.
That would be fantastic. But yeah, Chris, I think, you know what? The combination of kind of the longer storytelling format of television, a serialized storytelling in television, and take away the budgetary restraints in animation. To me, the animated shows have been the best representation of superheroes because you can show all their powers. You don't have to worry about the budget. You can tell the longer story over a certain period of time rather than the movies. So it's kind of a give or take, and it's a kind of a in between what we would like to see. But yeah, it's definitely when you have a movie and you can't do it because of things like box office, and you have to worry about what's going to appeal to the mass audience and everything, and you have to worry about the one movie at a time rather than, okay, can we plan out a trilogy at first and then have everything told within these 3 movies? Oh wait, we didn't make enough in the first movie, so you'll never see the second 2 movies. So yeah, there's a whole lot of different things that that go on with that.
Well, I agree with you. I think animation though is something that in the United States at least it's not as accepted as it is
absolutely.
say in Japan, where anime is huge and you can tell adult stories in animation. I always feel like while I've loved most of the WB animated stuff, I always feel like there's still not. I mean, to me, Batman Year One is the first time where it's like, okay, this is definitely for adults. But I feel like they're still holding back a bit. I mean, could they really make the Dark Knight?
You're absolutely right. I mean, there's clearly the fact that, like, even whether or not we feel that way, the majority of like parents are going to be like, okay, it's animated, so it's going to be for kids. And so like they'll have it for their kids and they won't watch it. Or if they do catch it, like, hey, this isn't for kids at all. Just based on content. But then, it's all a big like mix up. And I really don't think our culture would be okay with it. Because even like Batman the Animated Series, which in my opinion could have been a primetime show. Like I could have accepted that. But I mean, it was syndicated and it was aired in like the middle of the day or like right after school. So I mean, like even though it's accepted amongst adults now, or amongst us, there's not. I mean, like that's still not going to happen. Like,
but it was great. It was revolutionary at the time. The original Batman animated series, because really it was a chronological approach too. I mean, it was cool that Harvey Dent started out in the series as Harvey Dent and then became Two-Face. That was amazing. Just seeing that storyline play out when we knew where it was going, and the fact that it lasted so long and spun off. I mean, that to me was as influential as Frank Miller, and probably more so than the Tim Burton stuff. The Tim Burton Batman, I think, are way overrated in retrospect. I remember being really disappointed with the original Batman 1989 movie, and nothing to do with Michael Keaton. They're
not Batman movies, like at all.
They're not Batman movies. The first movie, the problem is because Tim Burton is obsessed with the villains. He's so obsessed. They should have retitled the first Batman movie The Joker, because when you look at the hero's journey, the movie is told through the perspective of the Joker. We meet Jack Napier. We see him, here he was before. Then he goes through this transformation. Then we see him, experience pain. We never see Bruce Wayne experience pain. It's told in a flashback with slow motion that is just, it's just plotting. He was just so obsessed with the Joker. He just did everything that he could to, and Jack Nicholson is fine as it. It's over the top. It's way over the top performance. It's not as layered.
Cesar Romero.
He played Cesar Romero was great. He kind of
I know, yeah. But I mean, like this is Jack.
That was within the tone of the TV show had its own tone. But I feel that 1989 movie, you're right. It was none of those movies were about Batman, which is why what Nolan did with Batman Begins, and actually this is about Bruce Wayne and about how he, went through this horrible experience and became the Batman. In fact, I don't know that story's ever been told. Like in the comics, I know it's been told, but not in a way where it was just, this is Batman's origin A to Z. It was always, I shall become a bat. Also, I got to get Alfred to fix that window. But, I feel that Nolan just put it all together in a way that even the comic books never did. But borrowing quite a bit from the comic books.
Okay, that was an amazing podcast. I want to thank those guys. Geeksofdoom.com is the site. Comics of Doom is that's the podcast. And I want to thank Justin, Chris, Hunter, Willie. You guys were great. It was fun to talk Batman obsessively for over an hour. In fact, that podcast went on so long, I finally had to tell those guys, I have to go. Now, Ryan, where can we find you on the internets?
I'm on Twitter as @4bush_man, which is a reference to a really awful Marvel character that if you don't know him, you should look him up. Like he's worth mentioning.
Bushman. I will look up Bushman. And I am, of course, at that Chris Gore. You can follow the show at PodCRASH Show on Twitter, and you can listen to it. It's on iTunes. It's on Stitcher. It's on my website at chrisgore.com. PodCRASH. You should listen to it. Or as Bane likes to say,
listen to the PodCRASH. PodCRASH, my favorite podcast. Before I go and break the bat, I always listen to PodCRASH. And before I destroy the Gotham City,
I have no idea what Bane just said.
That was a name.
That was crazy, Bane. But you know what? It's the end of the show, which means I have one last thing to say, and we all know what it is. Let's get out of here!
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Hey, if you're like me, then you're probably the kind of person who stays to the end credits of a movie and looks at every single name. I like you. We're very much the same. And for that you shall be rewarded. Consider this a little Easter egg. The first person to email me through my website at chrisgore.com, put in the body of the email, give me a free DVD, Gore, and guess what? I will. Of course, the DVD will be of my choice, and it might be something good, it might be something really awful, but it'll be in the pile of DVDs I have for review and something I don't need and or want anymore. And it's yours for free. So, send me that email through my website, chrisgore.com. Also, if you send me a self-addressed stamped envelope to that Chris Gore, 5042 Wilshire Boulevard, PMB 1500, Los Angeles, California, 90036, I will return said self-addressed stamped envelope with a surprise. And I know you love surprises. Later.